All right, welcome to Building Insight. My name is Quentin Glenn, alongside my co-host Amy Mareko.
Hello.
Our guest today is the Chief Commercial Officer of Redi, William Irwin. So,
Hey, good morning.
William, thank you
Welcome.
for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to do this.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So, I guess, the thing that we try to pull from these podcasts is, learning about the leaders in the industry, learning about, what it is that your company does. So I guess kind of just first question is, who are you? What do you do? Yeah. How did we get here?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I run sales and marketing for a business called Redi. We specialize in shower waterproofing systems for tiled showers. We are an old business. We've been around for 25 years, but relatively unknown in the industry. So part of what I'm doing is the brand evangelization, telling the story, getting the word out, because I think we have a really interesting and innovative product. And it was one of the reasons why I jumped over to start working for Redi, just because of the product and how interesting it is. So, but our sort of main value that we provide through the product is a single piece shower pan product for tile application. So you think about the traditional ways of doing it, called a mud bed, very labor intense, ripe for installation errors or even just unintended issues. And so we've taken a lot of that work and we built it in the factory through a repeatable process and put that product out in the market. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I know we've worked on a couple projects together, and we were just talking off air a few seconds ago. The installers that we've had work on the products, who have installed more showers than I've ever taken in my lifetime, they said that, the installation process is, night and day different. And, again, like just innovation within the construction industry can be a real differentiator for companies, right? We work mud beds all the time, and, I guess just kind of walk me through, what makes your product different, and what was kind of the driving force behind, developing in this way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So our business sort of generated from a notion to save the showers, right? So we know showers leak. We think anywhere from 2 to 5% of shower installations will eventually leak over their lifetime. And that creates a lot of challenges and problems and expense for both homeowners as well as property owners, asset owners, folks of that nature. So the product really was born from that notion that we can make this better, we can make it easier. It doesn't have to be hand built on a job site, it can be built in a factory. And so the core difference between what our product does and what's on the market currently is it takes all of the potential leak points of a shower floor and it eliminates them, right? So it's a full single piece shower pan. It's got little splash walls on either side. They're 6 inches tall, and an integrated curb, integrated drain. And those are sort of the elements that typically leak the most. Corner spots, drain to pan integration, curb to pan integration. Those are typically what we see as major challenges in the market. So we injection mold our product. It's all sort of standard and repeatable, and we take a lot of that guesswork off the job site and do it in the factory. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So, obviously the manufacturing process is like completely different than what we would traditionally be accustomed to, having installing these pieces. What goes into, your guys' manufacturing process? Like, what pieces are involved? I guess, what did you guys have to develop in order to be able to bring something like this to market? Kind of walk me through that.
Yeah. So I've been with the business for 2 years, and the manufacturing process has evolved quite a bit up to this point. Most of the evolution of that manufacturing process happened before I started. So I'm sort of speaking with tribal knowledge here. But the original shower pan that Redi made was made in a single piece injection mold, right? So very big, very expensive to make that tooling. The process, they would shoot in 2-part polyurethane. It would cure inside the mold, and they would open it up like a big waffle press and take the pan out. So pretty labor intensive from a manufacturing process. The other challenge that the business had was that manufacturing process required an epoxy to set the tile.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point around installation and speed and ease, people hated the epoxy. They're like, that's not what we do. Tile guys don't use epoxy, we use thin set. And so that was one of the major evolutions of the manufacturing process, is to be able to eliminate the need for that epoxy by the tile setter, right? And so that's sort of been the mantra that we've innovated on, is like, how can we make the installation process faster, simpler, easier, and go from as you said, 2 showers per day from an installation time to 25 showers per day. I mean, that's a huge increase in productivity. And so that's kind of driven our manufacturing process, or innovation is really those objectives of speed of installation and removing errors. At this point, we've gotten rid of the epoxy. The other challenge that we face is, like, there's so many different sizes and shapes of showers, right? Drain locations can be anywhere. You have dual curbs, triple curbs, cut curbs. I mean, the variation is endless, right? And so that was another major innovation of the organization, was to develop a full custom fabrication shower pan. So we have sort of the injection mold side, which is stock, made to stock. We have standard sizes, like 250 different sizes and shapes and configurations. But then we've built a full custom fabrication side to really fit any shower size you can dream up.
Yeah.
And how does that piece work, right? So, like, are you working with the design teams with with your clients? What stage are you guys at with with getting? I mean, I'm sure you're pitching a bunch of stuff to to these DCs. So how does that piece work?
Yeah. So on the design standpoint, we've got a sales team that really targets architects, designers, developers. And one of the major pitches is, we can make a single piece leak-proof shower pan in any size, shape, configuration you want, right? And so a lot of that work we try to do up front with the architects and designers to say, we can make this really weird configuration shower if you want, but it may be more cost effective to do something that's stock, right? And so what we'll end up seeing is, like, for a multifamily complex, the first 20 floors will be standard shower sizes, and then the penthouses will be something really unique and interesting and very large. We typically see these large wet rooms, where the shower and tub.
I was going to ask if you guys could do 0 entry.
Yep. Zero entry. We do. I think the largest shower pan to date has been 183 inches wide.
Wow.
Or long by like 7 feet wide. So it's pretty interesting, some of the stuff that we get into, and our team works with the architects and designers to sort of achieve that vision.
That's a big shower pan.
It's a big shower pan.
Yeah. Like, I'm just thinking from from our installer standpoint, like, that's something that would take, I mean, every bit of a day to get in. And from our perspective, the speed to install, like, that means my installers get paid quicker.
Yep.
Right. That means we get to invoice faster. Right.
That's right.
And, so from, like, a preference standpoint, that's going to be where the guys actually doing the physical labor are always going to lean towards, like, how can I get this done as quickly as possible with as little room for error as possible. But at the same time, there's that adoption piece from your clients that is crucial to all of it. So what have you seen, again, in an industry that typically is, the old way is the best way, it's the tried and true way. What are some of the challenges that you've seen getting your product to adoption?
That's probably the number one issue that we see is, like, we know our method and we trust our method, right? That's sort of the feedback from a subcontractor. And I get it, right? I mean, if you haven't been having issues with a known method, like, why introduce the risk of something new, right? And it's a completely legitimate response. And how we try to overcome that is exactly what you were saying is, you can increase your productivity, you can get paid faster, you can get in and off the job site faster. And ultimately your risk of having an issue later down the road is minimized with this new thing, right? Mm-hmm. But there is a lot of work that we do to help people over that transition. So we'll come into a subcontractor and do installations with them, just sort of mock installations. So they get the feel for what it looks like and the ordering process and sort of all the back end things. And then we're on the job site with them as well for the first few projects that they do, just until they get comfortable using it. Right. We see a lot more objection to our product in the single family home space than we do on the commercial side.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's because a lot of the commercial subs do have much more of a business mentality, continuous improvement thought process. How can I get this done better, faster? And so they're a little bit more willing to adopt new things. Whereas the single family home installers, will give us the most pushback of like, hey, I like you doing mud beds. I can go pick up a product at a distributor the same day. Whereas our product, has a 2 or 3 day lead time to ship. Right?
Sure.
So we do see a lot more objection in the single family than the commercial, but no, that's definitely the biggest issue we got to get over.
Yeah. That's interesting because, I would think that at least from like a home builder perspective, we do some work with some large home builders, 100 family, 100 house folks, and 12 different floor plans and this and that. And from my seat, it seems as if we if I got 12 floor plans, I can buy 9 of these showers, and I'm not going to have any of those issues. So do you guys work with build, like, do you try to focus in on builders, or are you approaching the individual consumer themselves? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Our business is a little bit unique in the building products manufacturing space just because we are an omni-channel business, right? Mm-hmm. We have a direct-to-consumer web store that you can go on that sells mainly to do-it-yourselfers and small independent contractors. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and so we do a good business through there, and then we sell through big box e-commerce, so Depot and Lowe's and those guys. Again, mainly to do-it-yourselfers and small independent contractors. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we've historically sold to large commercial organizations, developers, big projects, multifamily hospitality. Mm-hmm. The newest part of our growth strategy has been targeting those single-family home builders, especially the ones that are doing, 500, 1,000, 2,000 homes per year, because they started to see the value in the speed and the repeatability and reduction in sort of the handwork and labor component of it.
Yeah.
And so we are starting to grow that side of our business pretty rapidly. We have new reps that we've hired over the past year to meet with those builders and plumbers and distributors and things like that. And so it's starting to get traction. It's really when we get down into the custom builders and sort of smaller production guys where that objection really pops up the most.
Sure.
What we hear a lot is, like, especially from custom home builders, is my tile guy just does this all turnkey. They're very, very good, mm-hmm. right? $2, $3, $4 million homes, beautiful showers, marble everywhere, and this is what they do all day, every day. And so that customer segment is pretty resistant to change, mm-hmm. which is interesting. But it's been a fun journey to sort of figure out where we need to position the business for long-term success. So
yeah, and I feel like that residential piece, maybe they're not as in a hurry as like the commercial multifamily. They're turn and burn, like, let's get this going, so that I could see that pushback. But
the most urgent customer is the hospitality renovation, right? Right. They're going every 2 weeks, 2 floors, all the way from top to bottom.
Oh, yeah.
And if you mess up their timeline, it's game over, right? And then on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of these single-family homes will take 6 to 12 months to build, and the house is open for a while, right? And so their urgency and speed is not quite as high. But again, we can tailor our message to say, hey, okay, so speed's not important, but is quality important, right? Do you have warranty issues? Do you have leak issues? And that's where we hear stories of, a second floor master bath or primary bath shower leaking down into the kitchen, and it's $250,000 remediation. It's just terrible.
Yeah. I think one of the good things in my seat from what you guys are experiencing now and what we've noticed trend wise, with the builders, the GCs, who build multifamily, the GCs who build, single family homes, is that the multifamily space is usually a lot quicker to adopt on these innovation pieces. Yeah. And then, slowly over time, the builders will
kind of make the
get on
down.
board. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So no, that's interesting. Now, I guess just to kind of switch gears a little bit, how did you fall into this line of business? Like I come from, I don't come from construction traditionally. Sure. But how does one end up at a company with this type of mission?
Yeah. It's interesting. My career path has not been linear. It's been kind of all over the board. So just before we were talking, I started off working as an officer on submarines in the Navy. So I did that for 5 years or so. Then my wife and I started having kids, and we're doing the math on being gone for 6 to 8 months at a shot, and this is gonna be a tough. Mm-hmm. God bless the people that do, but for us, it wasn't quite the right long-term career path. So I ended up leaving the Navy, went to business school for a couple of years, and then got connected with a large manufacturing company called Danaher. Mm-hmm. They make, now they're much more of life sciences manufacturing technology. At the time when I joined, they were sort of all over the board. Small manufacturing firms, a bunch of random stuff that nobody's ever heard of, but very successful organization. And so I joined them to really, really sort of cut my teeth and learn about business and learn how to be a general manager. And sort of that was the aspiration at the time. Was with Danaher for about 8 years, lived in Germany for 4 years as a part of that. It's a really unique opportunity and experience. And COVID hit, and they were like, "Oh, you got to move home."
Dang.
And so during that chaos, ended up switching over to Honeywell, based here in Charlotte. So I ran their personal protective equipment business unit for a couple of years. So hard hats and hearing protection and safety glasses. There was some exposure to the construction industry through that. But again, they're selling to manufacturing, all sorts of stuff from a PPE standpoint. But then the opportunity popped up to jump over to Tile Redi. And it was an opportunity for me professionally to lead a much smaller organization. Mm-hmm. Honeywell is massive. We probably had, 100 sales reps in that business and tons of marketing folks. It was just a behemoth. And so the opportunity working for a much smaller company is you really get to put your thumbprint on something. Mm-hmm. You get an opportunity to build a team and grow a business and really sort of work through all of the challenges and issues that brings. Yeah. And so I've always been fairly industry agnostic with my career choices. It's more about, from a professional development standpoint, what can I do? What can I accomplish? What are the challenges that I can go face and try to overcome? Having said that, though, around the agnosticism, the construction industry is amazing. Mm-hmm. It's so cool. It's huge, but it's also very small. There's so much stuff going on, to your point, around innovation. So many businesses that are trying to figure things out and innovate and do things differently. And it's just been a very, very sort of fun couple of years being involved in this industry. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. Amy has heard me use that same thumbprint analogy probably 15 times, because that was my draw to working with flooring pros. Sure. I come from background in talent management and recruiting. I worked for some really large firms. Yeah. One piece of a massive cog.
Right.
And,
right.
Again, similar to, my brother-in-law works for Honeywell. Right. And I was joking with Amy yesterday. I was like, she was asking what Honeywell does. I'm like, well, they
a lot of stuff.
Well, they put on those commercials on TV that, doesn't really say any one particular thing, right. But, shows, pictures of the landscape and say innovation and things like that. But, for me, what drew me in was exactly what you're talking about. It's like, I can see the impact that my decisions make on a daily basis, right? 2 good phone calls and executing with the right client, that could mean 15 more people working for my company in 6 months. Right. And that's a really appealing piece for me. So again, it's cool to hear you say that. So, what is your company's approach? What's your approach to, the next 5 years? I mean, obviously, market takeover, but, what are you at Tile Redi aiming to do?
Yeah. So, when I started a couple of years ago, it was sort of on the very tail end of the COVID bubble, right? A lot of building activity, a lot of renovation and repair activity. And so at that point, the strategy, was really around further market penetration. We had 2 sales reps that were focused on the commercial business. And so that was sort of the first place to say, hey, there's 2 reps and we're generating nice results, but like, what if we had 10 reps, right? So that was sort of the first element of the puzzle. And then the market, started to not cooperate. Right. So fastest interest rate hikes in history, inflation, rampant inflation, labor costs going up, really put the squeeze on a lot of the multifamily developers out there. Right. So we've seen a pretty big pullback from that standpoint. So that's been an interesting challenge to work through, but from a long-term standpoint, it still is a very attractive market segment, right? And so, where we're trying to position 5 years, 10 years down the road is to be a business that is still rooted in speed and simplicity, but trying to stay in our core business, right? So we want to stay in the shower space, but there's opportunity for expansion outside of just tile, right? There's tremendous volume done in the 3-star, 3.5-star hospitality world that doesn't use tile, right? They're using a prefabrication approach and a single piece pan and wall panels, things like that. So there's more opportunity to grow and to sort of maintain that core value of speed and simplicity, even in that space. That also applies to the multifamily side of things as well, just in the sort of the mid-range, multifamily projects, stick-built and things like that, university housing, tremendous volume and opportunity to simplify those shower systems.
Yeah.
But still provide something that's very nice and elegant and good-looking, but it's, still cost-effective. So that's sort of one area that we'll continue to work on over the next, 5-ish years. Another big area that we'll continue to push is what we just mentioned around the single family home side, right? So the production builders, top 100 production builders in the country is sort of a focus for us to say, how can we make their life easier? How can we make installations go faster and better? And how can we ultimately provide the homeowner what they really want, right? I mean, we have conversations and do voice of customer surveys that say, a home buyer in the $500,000 to $750,000 range probably wants a tiled shower in their primary bath, but the builder may not be willing to provide that for all sorts of reasons, right? And so how can we as a company de-risk that choice for the builder, but ultimately give the homeowner what they're really looking for?
Yeah, right? That's a good point.
And so that's kind of what we're, the second big area of our mission is to really expand into that and help solve some of the challenges that those customers have been having for a long time.
So has it just become kind of like a sales and numbers game, or like, product knowledge, like getting people to recognize that your product is out there? Because to my knowledge, you guys are unique in this space. So, what efforts are being done from like a marketing perspective? How much is focusing in on that, and how much of it is just purely like picking up the phone and trying to call people?
That's a lot of it, right? It's feet on the street. It's being present in a market. It's knocking on doors, right? That's a big piece of it, and that's really around the brand awareness side. For whatever reason, good, bad, and different, our market awareness has been fairly low for a very long time. Great product. People who use it love it, but just not very widespread from a knowledge standpoint. You compare that to traditional methods like mud and some of what we call puzzle piece systems out there. Those are they're kind of ubiquitous at this point. And so, our main objective has really been around customer education, market awareness, kind of getting the brand in front of people. And as we just mentioned, a lot of that's been done through new sales reps in market, but then also other marketing activities, right? Social media, How can we get more people who have a broad base and influence online? How can we get those folks using our stuff, right? So there's all sorts of opportunities for partnerships.
Going on podcasts.
Exactly. That's right.
Well, I remember you guys coming and doing your lunch and learn with us, and our minds were blown. Like literally, I remember sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This could change what we do. So, I mean, I remember that specifically.
Yeah. No, and that's the fun part, right? Is you have a meeting with a subcontractor or architect or somebody, and they're like, wait, there's a different way to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, there
is.
You
guys carried the pan in, everything. I remember. I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah. No, it's fun, and it's fun to see those light bulbs go off. And really, where it happens is in the installation, right? What would normally take multiple hours, and then like a mud bed takes a couple days to cure, right? And if you don't let it cure, it's not going to hold up correctly. And so, we take that multiple day installation down to a 20 to 30 minute pan install, and you can tile generally later that afternoon or the next day. And so to see that sort of aha moment is rewarding. For sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So when you think about, your next stages of innovation, your next stages of development, what is it that you see coming out of your company, or I guess just, the future of this industry? Like what's next for it? Is it like developing, further into the same product? Is it, starting to bring about new products or, different materials, or what does that look?
Yeah, all of the above. No, when we think about product innovation and new product development, there's a whole bunch of factors that play into that, right? A lot of those factors are sort of market trends and industry standards and norms and the way people do things. That plays into it. A lot of it comes from customer-driven feedback, asking what are pain points and how can we solve those specific to what our core capabilities are. But then also it's just around market analysis and understanding where we play currently, what other segments are attractive that we're not in, and how do we bridge those gaps, And so from a market and sort of industry trend standpoint, we see one of the big challenges is skilled labor, right? It's not, you could ask anybody in the industry about skilled labor and they'll probably give you a similar answer. Skilled labor is retiring, and it's not necessarily being trained the same way it used to be.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so as we think about shower installations, it's not an easy job, right? It's complicated, it's technical. If it's not done right, it'll lead to major issues, right? There's no less than 6 major hospitality projects we know of right now that are already built and done and closed up that have pretty significant leak issues coming from showers. And so it's, to remediate that is just tremendous waste and rework. And so that type of market dynamic feeds our product innovation, right? So, okay, we know skilled labor is sort of retiring and you combine that with labor shortages, right? And that drives, okay, well, how can we do this better and faster, right? And so that's driving a current innovation. You guys got a sneak peek of it at the PV Mall installation, and that new iteration of our existing pan will be rolling out later this year, early next year. But again, that change. So not to let the cat out of the bag, but our traditional pan had a bunch of ribs on the bottom, and that rib structure had to be filled in with a mortar bed. Typically 2, 3, 4 bags of type N or type S mortar. It was dirty. It was challenging. They had to lug those things up 20 flights of stairs, mix it, find water, up there. And so that was a real challenge. And when you watch that happen in real time, you're like, well, how can we make this better? Right. And so the innovation or sort of the next iteration of that pan will remove the need for that type of mortar, right? So again, it makes the installation easier, simpler, faster, but it comes from that sort of field observation and combination of market trends and understanding kind of what the challenges and pain points are.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of it, again, it's more around long-term vision, market analysis, understanding what segments we currently serve and what other segments that we could get into, and really a decision around, is it attractive or not to start developing something in another market segment, right? So we mentioned the mid-range hospitality and multifamily. Can we develop something for that product that's not tile, that's more of a prefab solution, but again maintains that speed and simplicity of installation? So
yeah, that skilled labor issue that you mentioned earlier is the pool that we play in all day, right? And that drives prices up for everybody. That creates a learning curve for any new installers coming in, or older installers moving out. So and at least for the PV mall project that you mentioned, there was a good amount of literature and training videos that when I talked to our installer, I was like, hey, just here's 5 links for you real quick, figure it out.
Yeah.
And for him, he came back and said, really, like, is this am I missing something? Am I missing something? Like, he was a little apprehensive, but again, like, as soon as he got in there, it was just nice and easy. So from a learning and development standpoint, what are you guys doing to to kind of usher in the new installers to bring your product to market?
Yeah, and a lot of it does come down to training resources and videos and pro tips and things like that. But a lot of what we do is sort of commit to being on the job site during that installation, right? We know, despite the nature of our product, there still are some things that can go wrong in the installation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to be on site to help folks understand, what to watch out for, how to install this, how is this different than what you're used to.
Yeah.
And really going after the sort of person approach. But we always kick around, like, the idea comes up, well, what about trade schools? Like, what about other avenues, right? And so there's a lot of other interesting things to do from an education standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
We've not gotten into that side of it yet, but it's still something that we think about. And is there a way to train people on some of these systems from the ground up, right?
I'm sure there's going to be a day where they're like, a mud pan. What is that? Mud pan? Like, what? Like, honestly, think about it.
Yeah, I think that day will come. A lot of that tradition and knowledge will retire. And so
it's 2024. Let's go.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. But there are a handful of other areas of construction that sort of are similar, right? Like, building wraps have gone from, if you think about driving through a neighborhood, you see like the Tyvek, full wrap. That's going to zip system, right? It's much more of an engineered product. It's built in a factory. It's repeatable. So I think there'll be more and more areas of the industry that sort of move more towards the system approach, the manufactured approach, and so that'll be interesting to watch that evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. No, one of the things you mentioned that I guess is a separator from our standpoint is, it sounds like you kind of PM the jobs yourself right now. Like, we work with Mike out in Arizona, and he was great to work with. And
sure.
I don't see many vendors, go out and do that. I can name my top 5, vendors right now, and they're just like, here's your product, good luck. Now, again, a lot of that comes down to, when it's carpet, we need to know how to install carpet, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a unique thing about what you guys got going on. How do you look at that being scalable, right? I'm sure there will again reach that tipping point where again, like, the product knowledge is just there, but you have to have salespeople, or you have to have those guys out the field everywhere that you go get a client. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion that we have fairly often, right? Is that scalability? The stuff that Mike was doing at PV Mall is not scalable, to be totally honest, right? I mean, that was very much a heavy sort of involvement by him.
He was receiving the material. He was calling my installer, and from our standpoint, like, we're thankful for that.
Sure.
Right? This is our first time doing that.
Yeah.
and he crushed it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, long-term scope, like Mike can only be in so many areas.
He's one
like
guy.
He's from Dallas, right?
Yeah.
He's very, he's
His
flying
territory is
Scottsdale.
Dallas.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So Mike's a bit of a unicorn, but a lot of our other reps still do a lot of that type of work right now. And I think that's a result of our market penetration and just sort of general awareness by GCs and subs, right? And so we're taking this much more white glove approach in the early days to make sure everything goes smoothly. People understand how it's different and how it's installed a little bit differently. The other sort of interesting thing about our product is it can sit in multiple trades, right? So the tile guy can sub, the flooring installer can sub, or the plumber can do it. And so, a lot of what we do is try to reduce trade conflict and try to get our thing just in one trade. And so a lot of times those trades aren't necessarily familiar with installing this type of product, right? And so being on site, doing a lot of the PM work, like you said, is important, at least to get people over the learning curve. And once folks do get to that point, it's a pretty cut and dry process. So
yeah, no, I'm sure like the thought would be that Mike works with my installer enough times to where my installer is comfortable PMing this, and then like all of a sudden you've created an advocate in the field for you, who can run the whole process, who can communicate with the plumbers, who can communicate with the the tile guys. So no, that's a really interesting model. And like I said, I haven't seen very many vendors go out and do that. So well, I think at least for me, it's been awesome to work with you guys, at least through that one project, as well as some of the stuff we have going on out here in Charlotte. And we're hearing amazing things from our clients, and I'm sure you guys are hearing it in spades as well. So
yeah, no, love hearing that for sure.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it from me. I really appreciate you joining us here today, William. And again, this is Quentin Glenn, this is Amy Mareko, William Irwin, the Chief Commercial Officer for Tile Redi, and thanks for joining us here on Building Insight.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was really a fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.